Welcome to Time Monk Radio. We are speaking with Susan Weed about the Wise Woman Way and 7 medicines. Hello, Susan. Welcome to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Gemini. It's such a delight, as always, to be here with you and to have an opportunity to talk about my ideas. Not just my ideas, but my good ideas. You know, one of the real advantages of getting older, and I'm pushing so hard on 70 that it's beginning to give way, is that you can look back over your life and ask yourself, did I have any good ideas? And I have been able to look back at my life and see that I have had 3 good ideas. And we have been talking about all 3 of those good ideas here at Time Monk Radio, although not in a really focused and coherent way. The first of those 3 good ideas is that there are 3 traditions of healing. The Wise Woman tradition, which nourishes wholeness, the heroic tradition, which balances and cleanses, and the scientific tradition, which measures and fixes. The second one of my good ideas is that there are 7 medicines: serenity medicine, story medicine, faith medicine, lifestyle medicine, alternative medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, and high-tech medicine. And over the next 28 weeks, we are going to delve into these 7 medicines. And my third good idea is drink nourishing herbal infusions as part of your life, as part of your everyday practice. Make a nourishing herbal infusion what you have if you're pressed for time and don't have time for breakfast. Throw out that blender. Stop doing green drinks and do nourishing herbal infusions instead. So those are my 3 good ideas. And as I said, you have heard about them here and there and here and there on Time Monk Radio, as well, of course, as having access to I think there's about 130 YouTubes that I have made at this point, introducing you to plants, talking about making nourishing herbal infusions. And I have an online course about nourishing herbal infusions as well at the Wise Woman University. And there is also a course on the 7 medicines. And that course is called The 7 Rivers of Healing. So I hope that we can be comfortable as we talk together and talk ourselves through this good idea, the 7 medicines. I hope we can be comfortable using a variety of metaphors and a variety of ways of looking at this. In my books, I call this the 6 steps of healing. And each one of my problem-focused books works with the 6 steps of healing. Now, maybe you're scratching your head and going, what happened to the 7th one? I thought there were 7 steps of healing. Many an editor of mine has argued late into the night with me about calling it the 6 steps of healing. But I did that because I thought that people would be confused if they saw that it ended with 6, and I call it the 7 steps of healing. Now, this is like one of those riddles in some book, isn't it? What is Susan talking about? Well, those of you who work with computers may have already figured it out. The first step of healing is step 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, yes, there are 7 steps. There are 7 medicines. There are 7 rivers. But when I'm talking about it as steps, I will often just say there are 6 steps, because step 0 is the invisible step. Now, I first started thinking about these 7 medicines way, way back in the mid-70s when I was approached by a group of women who had been running a women's health clinic in Manhattan. And they had been doing this long enough that they had some favorite remedies, some favorite ways of doing things. And they also had a lot of suggestions from the women who had come in, and they wanted to put together a booklet, 30, 40-page booklet of their favorite remedies. And they started giving me all of these things, and the more things they gave me, the more I felt that I was just kind of swimming around in a sea of facts and information and suggestions and opinions and things that had happened and personal stories, and it was hard for me to get any sense of direction in it all. So I sat and I asked myself, what could give this direction? What could help me decide, as the person who was compiling this information for this feminist health clinic, what motive could there be for trying homeopathy as opposed to acupuncture first? We are indeed living in time, and so we can't necessarily do everything at once. And certainly, if you were to do both homeopathy and acupuncture, and it worked, it would be difficult for us to tell what worked. So there is a certain elegance and a certain knowledge that we get from doing one thing at a time. How to choose which thing to do and when. One of the things that I had seen at this point from working in health food stores were people who were adamantly, severely against modern medicine. And I mean against it. I had a teacher once that turned away a cancer patient. She said, "I can't possibly help you. You've done chemotherapy and polluted your body." And I must tell you that her words really broke my heart to hear someone say that of another human being. And I saw people die because they wouldn't go into modern medicine for help or for a diagnosis. As a matter of fact, I was just at an herbal conference in Costa Rica, and a story like this was told at one of the workshops. It was the young man giving the workshop was giving this workshop in honor of his teacher, who was a very wild man and walked basically in many places in the world eating wild foods as he went. And in one of the many places in the world that he picked up a parasite that makes its way to your brain. And if it's treated early, the drugs are effective in eradicating it. But if it's not treated early and allowed to progress for years, as it was in his case, then it is indeed fatal. And so this, memoriam, in a way, to his teacher, to the person that he respected and admired, who I would have hoped could hear the call of integrative medicine. And each one of these people that I have met, that I have heard about, who has left their body when modern medicine could have made that different, I've had a feeling for it. And I wanted to say to people, drugs and surgery, they're okay. Just don't choose them first. So in the way of ordering many things, it wasn't so much what I was going to choose first as I knew pretty clearly what to choose last. And that really helped me. That really helped me have a sense of how the rivers were flowing. Drugs and surgery work, but we're going to choose them last. One of the things that I have found teaching tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands at this point, of people all over the world is that everything works. Everything works. Everything works sometimes. Everything works sometimes for some people, but everything works. So if everything works, I have to ask a different set of questions. I can't just ask of this remedy or this cure or this substance, does it work? But I have to ask, well, I said to myself, what do I have to ask? What is the question that I really want to have the answer to in order to understand how to take care of myself? And then I set myself a very big challenge. And my very big challenge was that I wanted to work with a statement that everyone would agree to. Now, at first glance, this is not just a challenge, but an absurdity, because we know human beings, and to get something that everyone agrees to, that's just about impossible. I will say, at this point, however, that everyone has agreed with my organizing principle, which is, first, do no harm. Isn't that really what I want to know? If someone says to me, do this and you'll get better, what I really want to know is, okay, I'll get better, but along the way, will it harm me? How many of us have unexpectedly discovered that, yes, the drugs which work and will get rid of our problems will cause other problems, some of which are more severe. First, do no harm. So we have an ordering principle for all of these different things from the Feminist Health Clinic. The ordering principle is, first, do no harm. Last is going to be surgery and drugs because they harm. They not only harm, they harm frequently, and they can harm lethally. Yes, drugs and surgery work, but they can also kill you. So what kinds of things were women finding effective and talking about in all of this information that were the softest, the gentlest, the easiest, the almost invisible things? And as I began to sort through this mass of papers and to look at this view, I began to also group things together, because there was another choice that I saw people making that I didn't think had to be made. And that was when someone had a problem and they said, I don't think I have to run off to the medical doctor for this problem. I think I can use alternative medicine for this problem. And in their mind, alternative medicine is kind of a big stew pot of a bunch of different things. And being as how we're individuals and we have certain preferences and tastes as individuals, when people dip into the stew pot of alternative medicine, they tend to get a bowl full of pieces that are closely aligned. And it may just be where we start. Perhaps we start by going to a homeopath who recommends that we see someone who does flower essences, who recommends that we have a session with someone who does Reiki, who suggests that someone who has gemstone elixirs could be of use. And you try all these things, and your problem isn't solved, and you say, alternative medicine doesn't work. I have to take drugs. And what is not obvious or clear to the person involved is that these are not four different things, but they are all part of one medicine, which is faith medicine. Whether it's a flower essence or a gemstone elixir or a Reiki session or a homeopathic remedy, what is operative, the active ingredient, we might say, is our faith. So what has happened here is that this person has wandered about in the woods, making a circle and saying, I'm not getting anywhere, so I have to jump off the cliff. Now, I can tell a pretty funny story on myself because I was out in a wonderful whitewater rafting trip over several days in New Zealand. And we had come to shore for the second night. And it was a little bit later than usual. We pulled in, got everything set up and a fire lit and some food going, and I felt the call of nature. Well, someone had already gone ahead before the light had totally faded and had dug a pit for us and had left some markers so that we could find our way through the very dense forest. And I got pointed off in the right direction, was able to follow the markers, but not easily or well, and I did indeed, just when I thought I was totally lost, find the marked area with the white flag of the toilet paper waving, and I was very happy to be there. And when I tried to retrace my steps, I found that it didn't look the same. There seemed to be fallen trees across where I thought I had come, and I seemed to have been walking back toward camp for a very long time and not to have gotten anywhere at all. And the sound of the water seemed very, very loud, and I decided to stop. And I was very glad I decided to stop, for I was indeed on the edge of a 20-foot cliff over the river. And I decided that the better part of valor was to scream for help. And that's exactly what I did. So when we're hurt, when we have a problem, when we feel sick, I sometimes feel like that Susan who was wandering around in the woods. How did I get to where I am, and how do I get back? It's all so confusing and dark, and it looks different. So it was my hope in creating the idea of the 7 medicines to put some brighter beacons on that path back from the toilet paper flag back to the campfire, so that when we are away from home, we can find our way back home more easily, following the path, following the paradigm of the 7 medicines. First, do no harm. Each medicine increases in the impact it has on our body and on our psyche. Each one of the 7 medicines moves more deeply, physically and mentally into our corpus and our persona. At the beginning, in the first river, go with the flow. We are floating in an isolation tank. And we are not being touched at all. We are listening to our own inner voice. In the second river, gather resources. We open ourselves to others' thoughts, others' opinions, others' stories. We continue to listen to our own inner voice, our own inner guidance, and our own hunches. But we allow ourselves to be touched by the stories of others. In the third river, the river of belief, we actually start to take things, physical things, and put them on our bodies or take them into our bodies. We take a homeopathic remedy. We feel the hands of the psychic healer touching us. We put gemstones on our body. We lie upon the earth. We actually interact physically with the remedy or the cure. We'll be talking lots more about belief medicine. But one of the interesting things that science has found is that when we believe, we actually create different chemicals in our brains. So what we're actually saying is that the taking in and the being touched by physical things actually causes physical changes in the brain, in our mood, in our emotion, and in our immune system as well. In the fourth river, where we are eating and exercising, we really are taking hold with both hands of the physical world. We are actively moving, walking, bicycling, swimming, riding a horse. We're picking up weights. We're making pottery. We're painting. We're creating music. We are engaged in our life physically, not thinking about it, not talking about it, not believing it or using a symbol of it, but actively, directly receiving the gifts of the earth and turning them into our dinner. We are experiencing our own bodies and our own bodies as part of an interwoven network of life on the planet. There's the Great Divide coming up. The first 4 medicines, Serenity Medicine, Story Medicine, Belief Medicine, and Lifestyle Medicine, always build health. On the other side of the divide are alternative medicine, pharmaceutical medicine, and high-tech medicine, and these medicines always injure health. Perhaps slightly, perhaps in a way that's easily reversible, but the injury is always there. And so we see the deepening of impact as we move over this great divide. We're not just eating plants that are food and drinking nourishing herbal infusions, which are foods. We are starting to look at the plants as potential sources of drugs. We're starting to look at the plants and say, how can I make them stronger? How can I make them more potent? What is the active part of this plant, and how can I get at that? How can I not just move the energy in this body, but how can I move the bones, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles, the skin? So we're talking about all of the great alternative medicines, acupuncture and massage. We're talking about herbalism. We're talking about all the different ways there are that we can bring focused attention to someone's health and well-being. We're usually talking a greater time commitment. We're often talking some perhaps difference of thought, and we're using plants in ways in which they become more potent, more refined, as well as using our hands in more potent and more focused ways. Ultimately, we are able to turn those plants into drugs, and thus we have pharmaceutical medicine. And pharmaceutical medicine works at a molecular level within the body to make changes. Someone once said to me that taking a drug is rather like knowing not too much about programming, but being told to go through and erase every 100th zero. We do know that the drugs have effects, but we also don't know what kind of side effects they have, just as you're messing with the programming, would certainly have side effects, although it might have a beneficial effect as well. As I said, I'm not against drugs, but they do come here nearly at the end of the 7 rivers. And the last of the rivers is the one in which we actually take a sharp implement and cut open the body. This is definitely the most impactful of the medicines. I'd like you to imagine a triangle with its base on the ground. And I'd like you to imagine another triangle, a triangle with its base up in the air and its point on the ground. The triangle with the point up in the air is the triangle of how long it takes to heal from that medicine. So we see the point of the triangle is up top. Serenity medicine takes no time to heal from. The base is at the bottom. High-tech medicine takes the longest to heal from. The upside-down triangle tells us how long it takes for that remedy to have effect. So the base, the longest time is of a serenity medicine. Serenity medicine will heal, but it takes a while. And the point is down at high-tech medicine. High-tech medicine seems to be instantaneous, but if we superimpose these two triangles, we find that, in fact, not only does everything work, but everything works at just about the same rate when what we're looking at is real healing. Well, Gemini, we're out of time.
Indeed, we are.
So we will have to come back next week and talk more about the 7 medicines. We haven't even discussed at all how to use the 7 medicines. And then in our coming weeks, we will talk about each one of the medicines specifically and the specific things about it. I know this evening has just been a little taste, a little teaser, as it were, a little look into the buffet. But we will be actually sampling each and every dish.
That sounds wonderful, Susan.
Well, I wish you green blessings, and thanks so much for giving me this time and space to help us remember that herbal medicine is people's medicine.
Thank you, Susan. And on behalf of all of us here at Time Monk Radio, we also want to express our gratitude for sharing 100 shows with you. Last week at the conclusion of The Marvelous Mints was our 100th show together, and we so appreciate you spending this time with us.
Wow, 100 shows. Oh, my gosh. It seems like just yesterday that we got together.
It does. So we are so grateful that you take the time to share all your knowledge and wisdom with us.
Thank you, Gemini. Thank you.
Thank you. And this concludes part 1 of our 28-part series, The 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.